acknowledge that freedom of the press is a prerequisite for democracy and that the media have a critical role in shaping the credible political formations and their legitimacy. The media is also important in promoting good governance and harmonization of political relationships during this mediation. Ladies and gentlemen, media is a corporate citizen with duties and obligations similar to those of an ordinary citizen, and perhaps much more. Kenyan media, like their peers globally, is operating on a fast-changing sphere of socio-political, cultural, economic, and technological innovations. In view of this, we adopted a liberal constitution which has gone a long way towards protecting the rights and interests of many groups, including journalists. The Bill of Rights in the Constitution is one of the most progressive anywhere in the world. The legislation has created statutes that operationalize Article 33, 34, and 35 of the Constitution. As a country and an emerging democracy in Africa, we would not allow ourselves to harass or gag the media, and will continue to support all initiatives of media stakeholders in their pursuit for professionalism and responsibility. The deliberate efforts by the government to entrench freedom of the press, including online freedom, in the Constitution are designed to facilitate a dynamic role in the economic transformation of society. I would like to urge the media to be vigilant against machinations such as using media to set personal and selfish agendas. The tenets of objectivity, fairness, and balance in coverage should not be sacrificed for the sake of profits. As you're all aware, media is a powerful tool, and it will be costly for the country if gatekeepers across media companies compromise their vigilance and allow external forces to advance their agenda to the detriment of innocent citizens. Take this as your patriotic duty to hold the country together.
Every year, 3rd of May is a date which celebrates the fundamental principles of press freedom, to evaluate press freedom around the world, to defend the media from attacks on their independence, and to pay tribute to journalists who have lost their lives in exercise of their profession. It is a date to encourage and develop initiatives in favor of press freedom and to assess the state of press freedom worldwide. 3rd of May acts as a reminder to governments of the need to respect their commitment to press freedom, and is also a day to reflect among the media professionals about issues of press freedom and professional ethics. The Council members are deeply encouraged by the government's declared commitment to media freedom and the rule of law. We launched the curriculum for middle-level colleges, and now we want to embark on inspection of these institutions that offer journalism training. We also updated the guide to covering elections, which was validated and disseminated. The Media Council of Kenya remained constrained due to budgetary allocation over the last 2 years that has gone down. We sincerely hope that you will assist us to be better funded to enable us carry out our mandate effectively. MCK needs to have staff or partner with relevant implementing partners to ensure delivery of its mandate at the county level. To respond to devolved government systems, MCK plans to establish county offices subject to availability of funds.
As a media fraternity in Kenya, we must work hard to stay true to the maxim of our calling, the service of public interest. It is our duty to hold to account those who govern, and we must do that faithfully on behalf of the governed. Mainstream media must come through to its consumers now than it ever has. In the era of fake news, the truth has become a very precious item that only credible journalism can deliver. I urge newsrooms to tighten gatekeeping processes and place high value in sound editorial judgment to protect the credibility of journalism.
We are celebrating World Press Freedom Day when Reporters Without Borders released a report last year. and the ranking of Kenya actually has not improved. This has been so because of several factors, among them increased assault on journalists and media industry by politicians, state actors, and employers. There has been heavy investment in the Kenyan media, but they are not supported by any policy, and that is why whenever we have any shocks, you see a lot of things happening in the media industry that lead to retrenchment and rendering many journalists jobless. Given that newspapers are now facing a lot of challenges, can we also see how we can review taxes on newsprint so that we can cushion the media houses, especially the print media that is feeling a lot of pressure from the online and the technology that is there, so that they are able to cushion them? I think if we can do that, we will be able to have a vibrant media that can stand and deliver as expected.
As we mark this day, we ask you to deliberate on some of the following critical questions. What are the stumbling blocks in Kenya for the protection of fundamental freedoms in societies and achieving justice for all? How can the Kenya Media Sector Working Group, which brings together all the media stakeholders, foster greater cooperation with the government, civil society organizations, the judiciary, and media organizations to promote press freedom in the country and tackle the challenges of journalist safety by preventing, protecting, and prosecuting the perpetrators of cases committed against journalists? The media business is being shaken to the core with the rise of digital networks and social media. Citizen journalists are redrawing the boundaries of journalism. Media accountability and credibility are falling under question. Online, the lines are blurring between advertising and editorial material, and we see private actors rising as key intermediaries, accompanied by new forms of private censorship.
The panel discussion that we will be getting into in the next hour is looking at media independence, professional journalism, and counter-narrative in mitigating conflict and hate speech, a public good for fair, free, and credible 2017 elections.
Elections are critical to our politics, and politics represents our highest level of negotiating for everything that we want. Every time we have an election, Kenya's economy slows down. Do we make this linkage? Do we understand that every time we have an election, we undermine our own progress? Do we hold politicians accountable for that slowing down of the economy?
We, the media, have led the country into being proud of self-ethnic profiling. All the key commentators on Saturday and Sunday and Friday are now very happy to speak of the Kamba Nation, the Mulembe Nation, Mount Kenya. I think we are propagating it more than we are giving guidance.
The role of the media must be seen in the light of fact-checking to stop propaganda, this is the season of propaganda, to stop fake news from dominating public discourse, to stop alternative facts from dominating public discourse. We can make our contribution by holding all those who are occupying public discourse space to account for the facts of what they say, so that we as citizens can have an interaction that is based on substance.
Therefore, I think that the most important thing is education of citizens. I don't know how it might happen in Kenya or elsewhere, but I think, in my opinion and my experience so far, this is the key. Because when you have educated citizens, they will demand for free media.
We must ask ourselves as media, what is it that we can do to reduce or minimize the appeal of hate speech, because we are getting into a season where our politicians will be very keen to make statements that appeal to a certain group of people, very low-life kind of statements. What can we do? What role can we play as the media there? Some of the media houses already have set an example, for example, by putting out their statements about political advertising. What will you allow and what will you not allow? If somebody is giving you 5 million shillings to run a documentary that basically is talking down to a certain community, are you going to allow that just for the sake of financial expediency, or are you going to say, no, we stand for this? So we must stand for something, both at individual and at organizational level.
Are all practicing journalists in Kenya professional? The one who will report this, whatever we'll see, read in the newspapers, watch on television, but on their Facebook account, for example, they post contrary information, which some of this might border hate speech or might, encourage others to be against some other communities. Powerful people like politicians have been, charged in court for alleged hate speech. But the judiciary has always made rulings where there have never been convictions. Journalists should push for review of National Cohesion and Integration Act 2013, so that evidence from journalists should be allowed in such cases.
The reason journalists should not go to court to testify is that it will take us away from the traditional space we occupy, which is we are neutral observers of events and we report. Once you go to court in the dock, you have joined the fray. You are on your own. When you are attacked by those people who will have identified you, not the police, not the system will be there for you. 2, until recently, our justice system did not allow electronic evidence. So that's why all these tapes we are talking about and audio recordings meant nothing. The law has since been changed, but in my view, the mindset of the judges have not been changed. They still think electronic evidence is not good enough.
It is easier for many of us and many people in the world today to publish themselves and therefore mimic or behave as if they were journalists. Hence, the need for us to really come back and define what really is journalism at the end of the day. Is it the skills we learn in our media schools? Or is it the values that inform and give purpose to what we do?
We have trained journalists who feel that there is some information that is not published by their employers or employer companies, and then they feel that it should go out there. That's where we have citizen journalism. Again, when you look at that field, you realize that we have journalists who are trained and those who are not trained. Those who are trained, I think they should, they know that their work is to tell the truth, and again, other issues of verification come in to make that truth so solid.
What is our role as professional journalists in dealing with this fake news, and how do you interact with it in your newsroom?
We have a very big role, and the online provides opportunities as far as I'm concerned, more than challenges, but it's really up to us as journalists to be responsible and leverage on those opportunities. The online platforms, maybe because of the freedom that it gives all of us, both professionals and non-professionals, then becomes the bedrock of conspiracy theories, of propaganda, and of misinformation or the fake news that we are talking about today. How do you then differentiate between a media professional and a citizen journalist? It is the principles of journalism that we've talked about that come to play. The values that we all go with, the accuracy, the fairness, the impartiality, but most importantly, especially when you're talking about elections, I think about humanity.
My problem would be, first of all, to establish credibility on the people, the mainstream media itself. Then when it comes to social media, we'll be able to challenge the false narratives that come on the social media. But if we were able to distinguish between the fake and the real, I think we give the Kenyan citizen a very good option to know that we watch in propaganda. But the same propaganda of what you see, the seventh point or the fifth will shock you. It's the same thing I see also in the mainstream media. In other words, the convolution of what is true and what is fake becomes another big issue when it comes to news coverage.
One thing that fake news does that traditional media can't or doesn't seem to want to do is explain complicated questions or explain complicated issues in a simple way. And the thing with fake news is it's so easy to digest. So I think rather than fearing fake news, I think mainstream media must look into it and say, what precisely are these people able to manufacture that is, evading us?
If the mainstream media has to wait and verify facts before going to town with a story, and the social media has already broken it, that puts them in a lot of pressure, and a lot of pressure to run with the stories that have not been verified. Where is the line between the mainstream and the fake or the social media? Is it possible for the mainstream to just hold on and verify news, verify the story before going to town with it?
When we came to online communication, the mainstream media panicked, and that panic has taken us too long. What we are doing is that the collection of news and dissemination of news changed, and we were following the technology the way it was taking us, following some people who are not journalists to get the news breaks. We should use our platforms and explain that this is authenticated news as compared to what is breaking around. Those who are in the mainstream media should come out and use their platforms to make sure that we go back to the credible journalism.
The biggest challenge that we have are that the media houses are actually business entities other than professional entities. And so now you're thinking about where to get your advertisement from. And advertisers are asking you how many followers you have and how many people are liking your pages. And so it's in that rush to publish, it's in that rush to be the first to break the news that we are finding ourselves in a very tricky position where journalists don't verify the news. They want to be the first they want to be the point of breaking where everybody runs to.
Cha muhimu ni kwamba sisi kama wanahabari inafaa tuzingatie miundo ya msingi ya uandishi wa habari, ambayo lazima iwe ni habari inaweza kuthibitika, habari ya kweli, habari ambayo ina chanzo, na habari ambayo inaweza ukiulizwa imetoka wapi unaweza ukafafanua zaidi.
How should we work together? Because we are depending on each other. The social media breaks the story. It might be fake, it might be true, but you run to verify, and basically it is the social media that has broken the story. It has to be given credit.
Thank you.
The main media has distributed. How should we then work together? Because we are serving the same population. That
Relationship should be actually symbiotic, because there's a lot that we can pick from the mainstream media, discuss in social media. At the very heart of citizen journalism lies a responsible use of technology and the ability for people to publish and to express themselves. And I think that right for people to be able to, with their handheld devices, express themselves without fear or favor, I think it's a great thing. What we need to promote is responsibility.
Do you foresee a day when advertising will take over from the media, since the media will have lost the moral authority because of profit making?
As long as we continue to look at our media houses as business entities, then we'll be driven by advertising. And as long as we are driven by advertising, then professionalism takes a second position, because then you're thinking more about what you're making out of your space than the service that you're giving as a service to humanity.
Most of these corporates, they're the ones which pay our salaries. So you find that most of the time a story comes touching on a particular corporation, but as you sit to decide on whether to go on with this story, you get a call from your bosses that that story should not go on air, otherwise all the ads will be withdrawn.
Social media is a skill. It is a battleground, I think. I think journalists can combat fake media as it happens on Twitter. This is something that is happening in a lot of different countries around the world. As soon as a viral tweet comes out with incorrect information and gets maybe 20,000 tweets, there is a journalist who is refuting this, and this gets 40,000 tweets. So if I think news media agencies are kind of trained to use social media and battle in a kind of equal standing, then it is entirely possible to combat fake news.
Let us agree that we are going to go beyond a tweet, beyond social media. When you get the information, let us verify very fast before we send it out.
Looking at the role of the media in actually helping us achieve. If we're talking about peace, if we're talking about justice, these are the things that we are looking. The role of the church and the media, for me, I look at it and I see that we are supposed actually to complement one another, to support each other. But sometimes we may want to see whether what we are doing actually helps or sometimes actually, causes more problems than actually we found.
In the course of conflict reporting and mediation process, what role does the media play?
The media is supposed to inform and be objective in laying facts bare as they are. But in a situation whereby you find that the conflict is so bad, there are a lot of bottlenecks that media practitioners have to encounter. One, there is that aspect where you are told that you should not make the situation worse. Now you are torn in between. It impedes the work of the media to inform and to play that advocacy. It makes it a big challenge when you are reporting on conflict, because you don't know which toes you are going to step on or what problem you'll cause as a result of your publication. And even the church leaders, you get them on the ground and they'll tell you, these are political issues, we don't want to wade into that because we are supposed to be neutral. So those are some of the challenges that as media houses or as reporters will have to encounter.
We have media houses that don't visit these places. What they do is some few editors do make some phone calls, and then you see a headline passing through your screens without even confirming. You'll notice that the case on the ground is very different from what these guys are saying. So the following day you visit the scenes, mnaambiwa nyinyi watu wa media mnakujanga hapa kuharibu maneno. You are reporting things that are not happening on the ground. You become a target to either the police, the bandits, or you die in the crossfire. These are some of the challenges we face.
Let us share these stories, but we needed to have at least what next, the way forward, what needs to be done. That one is very important. We need to come up with that, because we can't leave our journalists like this. Neither can we leave the church without this understanding of what we can do to build that consensus, to build that peace. Because those are people, human beings, born of this country and created of God, in the image of God. We don't want them to continue dying, and we pray that God is going to give us an intervention, that we will do it.
Judge Majanja, you were introduced as the Vice Chair of the Judiciary Committee on Elections. So if you could tell us in around 5 minutes what the judiciary is doing to prepare for the 2017 elections, and specifically in terms of resolving disputes.
The judiciary, in terms of realizing its role in that election, formed the Judiciary Working Committee on Elections, just to carry out this conversation of what is the role of the judiciary within the judiciary and with our stakeholders. And from 2013 up to today, we have a standing committee called the Judicial Committee on Elections to prepare the judiciary in terms of the work we do on a day-to-day, which is judging. Number two, to train our judges, our magistrates, on all matters concerning elections, because you have to have the knowledge and the skills to deal with election disputes. Because after the next constitution, we were told we have to hear these cases within 6 months. Three, we have to deal with other stakeholders, like that is why one of the reasons I'm here, to explain to you what is it the judiciary does, because part of the problems that the judiciary faces is that people don't understand our role. So we have to engage with stakeholders, explain to them what we do and what we can't do. The other aspects of what we are engaged in, we also engage with stakeholders like IEBC, political parties, to do what we can call risk management. Let's look at the laws, let's look at the issues that have arisen that can create a smooth election process.
Same question to Moses Kipkogei, who is representing the CEO. How far are we in terms of preparations? Do you have a dispute resolution role for 2017?
In terms of dispute resolution, we learned our lessons and we asked ourselves, what went wrong, what went well? And what we realized as the biggest challenge in 2013 was the challenge of time. So part of the law reform agenda we engaged in with Parliament and with other stakeholders, including the judiciary, the registrar of political parties, the political parties disputes tribunal, and political parties themselves, was the question of how do we manage time so that it is useful for people who feel aggrieved by the various processes which the Commission has engaged in, or which political parties are engaging in. We then proposed laws to Parliament whose effect was to increase the timelines for the various processes. This time around, you've seen many of the aspirants in political party primaries going to their own, invoking their own dispute resolution mechanism. By the time those disputes come to the Commission, they have been sifted through, and we will get candidates where parties are not contesting. We can see these shared responsibilities enabling processes to happen, and in terms of dispute resolution, I think we have many hands dealing with it, which ensures that we would have, by and large, a free and fair election.
And then Macharia, looking at it from the other lens, what disturbs you about the preparations of both the judiciary and IEBC concerning the 2017 elections?
What worries us is what we've seen in the last week or so with the party primaries, that we generally have an unruly political system, and we do not have the mechanisms to hold it to account. The IEBC and the registrar of political parties were sleeping on the job because they have the power and the mandate to call political parties to account and to discipline them. What is worrying us right now is that there are very glaring attempts to bring back this, to take us back to that culture of secrecy and opacity in the management of elections.
There is no secret in IEBC. The Commission operates what we call an open data policy. There is no result which would say this process has been undertaken and this, the outcome or the output is held in secret somewhere. Whether it is elections, which is our core mandate, or other operational things, even if it's procurement, everything in the commission is by and large open.
If you look at the history of elections, voting is always very peaceful. The problem always comes counting, tallying, announcement. And I think it's the same thing Macharia is alluding to. What have you done very specifically to demystify and to open up and to make more transparent that process?
If you go to our website, you will find a document which we call the Elections Results Management Framework. And it sets out in detail who is allowed in the tallying center and who is not allowed, who declares results at which station, all those processes, and it quotes the legal, the law at each point.
Lawyers seem to have taken the bigger share of election management bodies, IEBC and others. I wonder if, as communicators, either acting on our own or in concert with others, need actually to consider the possibility of at least having slots in IEBC, for example, reserved for journalists or at least communicators. And I say this because we seem to all identify the fact that communication is crucial, is extremely important. Yet, if you look at communicators at IEBC and other election dispute mechanisms, you find that journalists or communicators are at the level of managers.
If everything in Kenya was to be done, tallying and everything at the station before it goes to the IEBC, and if we did away with the chair who is entrusted with giving us the final count, suppose we got into the scenario that we got into the primaries, where we are having two candidates declared the winner, and maybe those two candidates were the president, then what?
The issue of the parallel vote tallying, the commission issued a statement. It is in the public domain. I think you make reference to that.
Why is it that sometimes during tallying of votes and counting and announcing, the media and other key observers are seen as a threat to it, in that even in the past, sometimes even everybody is chased away from the room? And what is IEBC doing to ensure that there is openness in that process in the forthcoming election? And can we have a partnership that the judges, the media, and the IEBC have a proper partnership for effective communication of the same?
Journalists are allowed in the polling stations at all stages of the process. They are allowed in the tallying centers at the constituency. They are allowed at the county. They are allowed in the National Tallying Center. What has been happening in the past, and that's something we've learned, is that quite often the people who are not allowed in those tallying places are the ones who will occupy front rows.
So the issues brought to fore today were government's commitment to press freedom, safety, security of journalists, professional ethics like reporting conflict and mediation, the fundamental changes in the media industry, for example, the jobs that have been lost and the ways in which we carry out news coverage, then navigation of the challenging terrain that we have right now. For example, we have had increased assault of journalists and dehumanizing incidences which have happened. And of course, we looked at election disputes, which we've been discussing in the other room. And of course, the issue of media and the gender equality. And of course, there is the new political era of impunity, where leaders are not really answerable to the public or the media, because they are the leaders. We spoke about the counter-narrative. There was a panel. And what caught our attention as rapporteurs was that the story that runs counters the dominant view that is promoted in society and the media. This is the riskiest part of journalism. We had panels and different topics of reporting on conflict and mediation. However, there is the power of the people in power who kill these stories, and some editors allegedly who even, some editors who edit out some of the most important information from these zones. The aspect of fake news kept coming in all the time, and we noted that the internet is quite a liberating sphere, and especially to the young people. And there was a panel on election dispute resolution processes, whereby credibility of an election is in the openness. This was echoed by all the panelists that were there. And one panelist noted that we have an unruly political system. This is very debatable. But this panelist challenged the IEBC and the Registrar of Political Parties to stop sleeping on the job, quote unquote, because they have the power and the mandate to call the political parties to order.
There are fewer cases of women being reported since they go silent, and most of them exit the media, and we think that they're doing that professionally, but there are other issues regarding their safety and security that push them out of that media environment. Secondly, that without the safety and security of journalists, then there can be no democracy. We also need to discuss the issue of the payment for journalists. The second panel on women and gender equality, which was moderated by Jane Gaudier, the takeout is that affirmative action has not been well understood, well articulated. We are still searching for the 2/3 gender role. And as media, we find ourselves within a very patriarchal society. So how do we report objectively? How do we recover women objectively when we're operating in a very patriarchal society? Issues about what makes news, what's profitable, does the women agenda sell? And can we move away from equal coverage, can we actually have equal coverage and whether that will sell? There's also the issue of the focus on the domestic role of women in society and not their potential in leadership, which we in media need to address and be careful about so that we are also not propagating the same ideals. And various examples of how various women political candidates have been covered in the past came to bear. How do we portray women as standalone candidates for the elective positions that they are seeking and not as appendages to the men or the communities that they represent? I think it was also clear from the panel that we may want to blame the media in Kenya, but as a society, we have not seen the gender agenda, we have not articulated the gender agenda as it should be. And that is something that we all need to do. And journalists can play a critical role in educating society, in educating ourselves about the value of women leadership and the kind of issues that they bring to fore, which might not necessarily be articulated by men. And lastly, that affirmative action will only succeed if we take it up as an agenda for all of us, and it's not a women's issue.
The media should exercise utmost responsibility. It should bring out truth, but keep the temperatures low. This is part of the conflict resolution processes that leads to peaceful nation. Then the role of the media in the short term must be seen in the light of the fact-checking to stop propaganda, fake news from dominating public discourses. And of course, hold the people accountable to focus on the issues that we've stated and address the sources of violence.
There was also a challenge to journalists to be able to work together and to work with the organizations and bodies that exist. There's also the need to have a multi-stakeholder team to address the issues around safety and security of journalists, and there is a need for us to be more proactive as we concretize the issues and speak with one voice and create awareness among journalists and media houses, media editors, HR, departments of media houses to be able to address these issues. 50 plus years after independence, we do not have an overarching media policy. So those of us in the academy have been challenged to think through helping in formulating that media policy. We need more training for women who are seeking elective posts, and I think Kerich challenged those of us in media to train and help hold the hands of women who are seeking political offices, elective offices in the 2017 elections, so that we guide them on how to navigate the media landscape and how to find relevance in the newsrooms as news sources.